Ruth sat at her kitchen table, a warm cup of chamomile tea cradled in her hands. Sunlight spilled through the window, casting soft light on the pale walls she had just painted herself. The phone buzzed and she reached for it quickly. "Hello, Michael," her voice gentle but careful. On the other end, his distracted tone floated through. "Hey, Mom. How are you today?" Ruth smiled faintly, her fingers tightening around the cup. They spoke quietly, about the weather, the garden club she attended, and his children's small victories. She told him about the new roses blooming outside, how Mrs. Adams, her neighbor, had stopped by to praise her flowers. She could hear the soft tapping of his keyboard while he made polite sounds of interest. "And your paintings?" Michael asked as if remembering. Ruth's lips curved softly. "I'm working on landscapes from the park. My art teacher says I have a good eye." "That's great, Mom." Silence settled. Ruth filled it with questions about his job, Miriam, the grandchildren. Answers came short and clipped. She glanced toward the hallway where the old grandfather clock ticked steadily. The sound felt louder in the quiet house. The television murmured in the background, forgotten but left on for company. Tuesdays brought her garden club, Thursdays her watercolor class. Those small routines kept the days from stretching too empty. At 69, Ruth often found evenings the hardest. She wandered the rooms slowly. Her hand brushed the reading glasses on the nightstand, the soft wool of George's favorite sweater still folded nearby. She placed an old record on the player, the gentle crackle of vinyl filling the space. She moved slowly, swaying alone, memories pulling her into the music they once danced to together. A voice cut through the moment. "Mom, are you still there?" Ruth blinked, the phone pressed to her ear. "Yes, dear. Just thinking about dinner. You're eating well. Not just tea and toast." "Of course," she said, though the lie felt thin. "Okay. I should go, conference call soon. Same time next week." "Yes, Mom. Take care." The call ended. Ruth stayed seated, holding the phone, hoping for some warmth to linger from the conversation. She sighed, lifting the cup again, now cooled. Light outside dimmed, stretching long shadows over her garden. Another day slipping away. She moved to the sink, rinsing her teacup slowly. Her eyes caught the calendar pinned to the wall. Garden club tomorrow. She touched the soft blue cardigan she planned to wear, the one Brenda said made her eyes shine. Maybe they'd go to the cafe afterward, the one on Main Street. Her sister called often, though she was older and frail too. Before bed, Ruth paused in front of the bathroom mirror. Her silver hair framed a face marked by time and loss. George's wedding ring hung on a chain at her neck, cold and steady. She whispered to her reflection, a quiet conversation that filled the silence left behind. The day George was diagnosed came back clear. A cruel word, stage 4. Their dream cruise faded. Hospital visits replaced celebrations. Ruth learned words she wished she never knew, watching the man she loved fade away. Michael had tried at first. Visits, bringing grandchildren to lift George's spirits. Miriam organized meals from their church. But visits grew rare. School. Work, they'd say. Ruth understood. Life kept moving, even when hers felt frozen. Ruth sat stiffly in the chair beside George's hospital bed, fingers gently curling around his cold, fragile hand. Her eyes traced the faint rise and fall of his chest, the morphine dulling his pain but not the silence between them. Quietly she spoke, her voice soft and steady, telling stories of their youth, how they first met under dim ballroom lights, his crisp uniform and her blue dress catching each other's eyes. His lips barely moved when he whispered, "You were the prettiest girl there, still are." The words faded with his breath. The room felt heavier before dawn. Her head drooped, eyelids fluttering closed. Then something shifted, an unseen change. She opened her eyes slowly, sensing the space beside her had emptied. The nurse's gentle words brushed past her ears. Peaceful, no pain. She nodded, holding on to the hope in that kindness. At the funeral, the church pews overflowed. Faces familiar and warm surrounded her. Friends, neighbors, family. Michael stood tall at the pulpit, his voice steady as he shared memories of George's years as firefighter, coach, deacon. Miriam bustled behind the scenes, arranging food, greeting mourners with quiet strength. The grandchildren hovered close, uncertain, their words catching and dropping like fragile leaves. Michael's promise to visit every day filled the room as guests drifted away. His calls came like clockwork, at first daily, then less, finally just Sunday afternoons. Sunday dinners grew quieter, then sparse. Excuses came in waves. Lake trips, visiting in-laws, sports tournaments, life pulling them away. She wandered the empty rooms of the large colonial, her steps slow and careful, knees aching with each climb. The garden, once George's pride, tangled wild and heavy. Bills stacked on the counter, the weight of property taxes heavy on her shoulders. Michael's suggestion came one afternoon, his voice warm but firm. "You don't need all this space, Mom." He gestured at the photos lining the walls, her family's history. "Selling could help you rest easier." The house sold quickly, the paperwork a blur. In the smaller rancher, she unpacked memories alongside boxes. She paused, hands trembling as she held George's matchbook collection, tears blurring the tiny logos of places they'd visited. The kitchen door frame stood bare, the children's height marks left behind. Outside, rose bushes she once tended with George were gone. Sunlight spilled through a bay window where a worn armchair waited. The kitchen gleamed with new appliances, and a small garden shed sat quietly, soon to become her painting studio. She sighed deeply, exhaustion mixing with relief. Michael moved boxes and furniture with steady hands. "What about the money, Mom? Have you talked to anyone about how to manage it?" His brow furrowed as he helped sort George's tools. She shook her head, unsure. Later, Michael's advice tumbled out. Investments, reverse mortgages, words heavy with concern. She promised to consider it, feeling the weight of his care. Months passed. The phone rang on an unusual Tuesday. Michael's voice was serious, asking if she'd updated her will. She hesitated, unfamiliar with elder law, brushed off his suggestion but felt a strange knot tighten inside. Miriam's call came soon after, cheerful but probing. Questions about health, pills, meals, money, like an inspection disguised as a chat. She listened, unease growing. Then Amara appeared one afternoon, her smile wide, compliments flowing. They sipped tea in the garden, laughter soft but careful. Amara's words faltered as she asked for help. $5,000. The check moved slowly across the table, warmth flooding her chest despite the pinch it left. Weeks later she spotted Amara in town, arms heavy with expensive bags, a fresh hairstyle shimmering in the sun. From across the street, hidden behind a shop window, she watched silently. Nathan came next, business plans in hand, charts and graphs she barely understood. "It's a startup, Grandma," he said, voice full of promise. $10,000 and you're in." She signed again, hope and trust mixing in her fingers. Half a year later, a casual question to Michael met with a pause. His words stumbled. "It didn't work out. These things happen." She held the news quietly, the weight of hopes unraveling but the story still unfolding. Ruth saw Nathan pull into the driveway, the engine of his new sports car humming softly. Nathan stepped out, keys jingling, his smile wide. At the community center dance, the wooden floor creaked under couples swaying. Milan stepped forward, bowed slightly, and held out his hand. His thick Serbian accent filled the room. His bushy eyebrows moved as he smiled warmly. Ruth placed her hand in his. They moved slowly to the soft notes of Dean Martin. Ruth's cheeks warmed. His laughter came like a gentle spring. "You dance like a much younger woman." After the music stopped, Milan pulled a small slip of paper from his pocket. Ruth took it, fingers brushing his. On their first date, the old theater's curtains parted to black and white images flickering on the screen. Later, at a small cafe, Milan spoke quietly with the owner in Serbian. The man brought warm pastries wrapped in paper. Milan talked softly about his late wife and children on the West Coast. Ruth traced the rim of her coffee cup, telling him about George, her paintings drying on the easel, and the flowers blooming in her garden. Wednesdays were for museums. Ruth watched Milan examine old maps and paintings, nodding slowly. On Saturdays, Ruth cooked dinner, setting the table with fine china, or they ate at his condo, the kitchen smelling of fresh bread. They drove to coastal towns, windows down, wind tossing their hair. Milan hummed classical music, eyes bright. One afternoon, Michael's voice turned sharp on the phone. "Mom, how well do you know Milan? Have you told him about your money?" Ruth shook her head. "No. We talk about music and travel." "Be careful," Michael said. "There are people who target widows with savings." Ruth bit her lip. "Milan owns his condo. He has a pension. He's not after my money." At dinner, Ruth watched Milan's face for lies. None appeared. Still doubt tugged inside. At lunch, Brenda's eyes narrowed. They never came so often when George was alive. Why now? "They are family. They care," Ruth said. Brenda tapped the table. "Just watch out." Weeks passed. When Milan arrived, Michael and Miriam appeared unannounced. Milan quietly excused himself. A soft sigh left behind. After Milan left, Michael said, "We worry about you. You don't really know him. He's kind. We enjoy time together," Ruth replied. Miriam laughed sharply. "Men his age want one thing." Ruth caught her breath. "I'm not naive." Family jokes about Milan's accent and background grew louder. Phone calls came when Milan was near, urgent requests from Michael. Miriam arranged lunches during Milan dates, forcing choices. One evening Michael said, "Your relationship disrespects Dad's memory." Tears spilled down Ruth's cheeks. "Dad would want me happy. Dad wants you safe." Ruth hung up. Milan's eyes held pain. "They are wrong," he whispered. "But family is important." Ruth's world shrank. Garden club meetings, the home she loved. Quiet now. Grandchildren came, hands outstretched. Nathan spoke about car repairs. Amara talked about school fees. Ruth opened her checkbook again and again, writing numbers too high. During visits, Miriam handled Ruth's treasures, the pearl necklace, the silver tea set, the crystal vase, holding each with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This would look lovely in our dining room." One by one, these things disappeared from Ruth's shelves. Michael called more often. "Nathan's tuition is hard to pay. The roof leaks." Ruth wrote checks, sometimes staring at the empty lines. Brenda's eyes grew worried. "Ruth, when did they last visit without asking?" "They're family. Family helps," Ruth said. "Family doesn't take." Ruth's heart ached in the quiet house. Paintbrushes in hand, she painted through tears in the garden shed, colors flowing where words would not. Michael's voice came again, softer now. "Maybe we should help manage your money." Ruth felt small, caught between strength and fear. Miriam watched daily, reminding Ruth about pills. "Maybe someone should check on you every day." "I can do this myself," Ruth said firmly. "There's no shame in accepting help." Visits followed a pattern. Amara praised Ruth's cooking, then said, "I hate to ask, Grandma, but rent is late again." Nathan spoke of debts and car troubles. Each time Ruth reached for her checkbook. While Ruth's savings shrank, their lives seemed fuller. Photos from Cancun. New cars gleaming. Designer bags carried by Amara. Ruth closed her purse tighter. Nights grew colder. Brenda pushed a small shopping bag across the table. "Look," she said, voice low but sharp. "They come with nothing but leave with everything." Her eyes didn't meet Ruth's. Ruth stirred her tea, the spoon clinking softly. "They're going through hard times," she said, a little too quickly. Brenda raised an eyebrow. "Have they ever given you back a cent?" Ruth's throat tightened. No one ever talked about paying back. Money always flowed one way. After Brenda left, Ruth sat by the window, watching leaves fall. The same thought kept coming. They showed up empty-handed, but never left without taking something. Her hands clenched in her lap. Part of her wanted to give more. Another part burned with a quiet anger. She touched her phone, remembering Milan's words, spoken months ago. "You're being milked like a cow." First she felt hurt. Now she wondered if he'd just seen the truth. Later, Ruth unfolded an old photo from a drawer. Michael, a boy with bright eyes and a big smile, held up a fish next to George. The sunlight caught the joy on his face. Ruth's fingers trembled as she stared, trying to find that same boy in the man Michael had become. Her clothes hung loose, she had lost weight. Nights were long and restless. Each time the phone rang, her heart jumped. She rubbed her eyes during a lunch with Brenda. "You look worn out," Brenda said softly. "This is breaking you down." Ruth sighed. "I don't know what to do. They're all I have." Brenda reached across, squeezing her hand. "That doesn't mean they can take everything. George wouldn't stand for this." "I'm not him," Ruth whispered. "I'm weaker." "Nonsense," Brenda said firmly. "You're strong. You just need to believe it." The next time the phone rang, Ruth shook her head before answering. "I'm sorry I can't help right now," she said, voice steady. "But Grandma, you always help," Amara's voice pleaded. Ruth pressed her lips tight. "Things have changed. I have to be careful." Calls came less often. The visits stopped. Only Michael kept calling, his voice soft, full of false care. "Maybe we should stay a few days. Help around the house," he offered. Ruth smiled faintly but said nothing. She sat at her desk, scrolling through pages about protecting elders from financial abuse. On another call, Brenda's lawyer friend talked patiently. Ruth's fingers typed notes, plans forming. One Wednesday, her phone rang while she painted a tree's shadow on paper. She looked at the screen, hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Michael," she said quietly. "Hey, Mom." His voice was light, almost cheerful. "How are you feeling?" They spoke about the weather, her garden club meetings, his kids' school stories. Ruth's brush moved slower, the sunlight fading. "By the way," Michael added, "we're having a birthday dinner for Nathan next week. You'll come, right?" Ruth blinked, surprised. She hadn't been invited to a family event in months. "Of course," she said. "What should I bring?" "Just yourself," Michael said fast. "We'll handle everything. It's at that new steakhouse downtown. Nathan's favorite." Ruth's mind raced. She couldn't buy much, but birthdays mattered. Maybe a nice shirt or a book. Then Michael's voice changed, softer, unsure. "Mom, could you send $300 to Miriam's account? The caterers want a deposit." Ruth frowned. "But you said the steakhouse. They have a private room. It needs the deposit." She paused but nodded. "Okay, I'll send it. Thanks, Mom. Love you." "Love you too." The line didn't click off. Ruth heard footsteps, quiet talking. She froze. A laugh, sharp and cold, made her skin crawl. "Hook, line, and sinker," Michael said. "I'm tired of these fake calls about her garden club and paintings," Amara said, voice sharp. Miriam sneered. "The birthday dinner will trap her. She'll come and bring cash. You know how she is." Nathan added, clueless. "We can push the reverse mortgage again. Dad says if we press hard enough, she'll give in. Yeah, once she signs over the house, we can put her in assisted living. The family home's worth too much to waste on her." Michael's voice sounded like business. "We just wait. Her retirement money and George's insurance will set us all up. She's too blind to see it. Always was. Weak and easy to fool, just like Dad said." Ruth sat still at the kitchen table, her hand frozen in midair, teacup forgotten halfway to her lips. Her eyes didn't blink. Her jaw clenched. The tea had long stopped steaming, and the cup shook slightly as her fingers trembled. The call had ended, but the sharp sting of laughter, familiar voices mocking her, echoed in her ears, louder than the ticking clock behind her. Her shoulders sagged. She stared ahead, unseeing. The light outside her window dimmed as the sun dropped, but she didn't move. Shadows crept across the tiled floor. She didn't notice. The cold porcelain touched her skin, but she didn't drink. Her lips quivered. Her throat tightened. Her eyes stayed dry, but her whole body screamed. The silence in the kitchen stretched. Ruth's chest rose and fell shallowly, her breath barely there. The betrayal clung to her like damp cloth, heavy and choking. Her heart ached, not like it had when George died, when she clutched his hand and whispered goodbye, but a new kind of ache, deeper, crueler. Her grip on the teacup slackened. It tilted slightly. Drops fell to the tablecloth, darkening the fabric slowly. Still she didn't move. Her mind, however, spun without rest. Every word they'd said replayed with stinging clarity. Every fake smile. Every hug that had felt warm at the time but now seemed hollow. Michael's voice, soothing, kind when he had held her hand in the hospital, sounded different now, coated in venom. Amara's laughter, once sweet and light when she handed over crayon drawings and picked weeds for her, now rang cold and mocking. The grandfather clock ticked louder than usual, the steady rhythm rising above the silence. Ruth's eyes drifted toward it. George's clock. The only thing she brought with her from the old house. It had stood tall through everything. Birthdays, anniversaries, the funeral. Now it stood as the only thing in the house not tainted. Her fingers unclenched slowly. The teacup landed with a soft clink onto the saucer. Her spine straightened bit by bit. Her eyes, once glazed, started to focus. The kitchen slowly shifted into view. Familiar wallpaper, framed pictures on the wall, half-finished knitting on the counter. Her lips moved slightly, mouthing a question she hadn't realized was coming. What would George do? The air shifted. A quiet answer came. Not in words but in her gut. George would never allow this. He wouldn't let their years of sacrifice turn into dust in the hands of greedy people. He'd protect her. And now she had to protect herself. Light crept through the window, soft and gray. The long night had passed, though she hadn't noticed. The world was moving again. So did she. Her hand reached for the phone. She dialed slowly, carefully. One ring. Brenda's voice came through, crisp and awake. Ruth, is everything all right? Her own voice cracked as she answered. No, then it came, all of it. The betrayal, the laughter, the secrets they thought she'd never hear. The words poured out like floodwaters, heavy and fast. Brenda listened without interrupting. When Ruth stopped, the silence stretched again. I'm coming over. Don't do anything until I get there. Brenda's knock came quicker than Ruth expected. The front door creaked open, and there she was. Hair neat in a sharp bob, shoulders straight beneath her cardigan, a tray of coffee cups balanced in one hand, her purse in the other. She set them down on the counter and pulled Ruth into a hug, holding her tightly, firmly. Ruth's tears came freely this time. They soaked her sister's shoulder. Her body shook in Brenda's arms. I should have listened to you, she whispered. Brenda didn't answer at first. She stepped back, brushing a strand of white hair behind her ear. Doesn't matter now. What matters is what we do next. They moved to the kitchen table. Brenda placed her notepad down and clicked a pen. Tell me everything, she said. Ruth spoke again, her voice more steady this time. She explained the accounts, the credit cards, the joint emergency fund. Brenda wrote as she spoke, her handwriting tidy and strong. All of this, she said when Ruth finished, changes today. Ruth hesitated. But what will I say? Brenda leaned in, her voice soft but firm. Nothing yet. You protect yourself first. She reached across the table and took Ruth's hands. Their eyes met, so alike. Brenda's grip was steady. You've always been kind. That's not a weakness. That's their loss, not yours. Ruth inhaled slowly, her back straighter. Her hands stopped shaking. Okay, she said. Tell me what to do. The next hours blurred into action. Ruth called her bank. She waited on hold. Her heart pounded, but her voice didn't waver when she finally spoke. I want to remove my son from every account, she said. The customer service rep hesitated. Are you sure, Mrs. Williams? I'm sure, she replied. And I want to move everything to new accounts. She went through passwords, security questions, everything. Then came the credit card companies. She deleted every name, every link. She paused once when asked about fraudulent charges. "No," she said softly. "Just not right." She opened a new email account, changed every password, deleted Michael's contact, Amara's too. Her fingers hovered, then tapped block. Later that week, she walked into Caroline's office, her coat buttoned to the top. Brenda sat beside her. Caroline listened carefully, nodding, her pen ready. "We'll create a trust," she said. "We'll protect your assets. We'll write a record of this moment so your intentions are clear. And we'll name someone else to make decisions if needed. Not Michael." Ruth didn't cry this time. She nodded. "Good." When Nathan's birthday came, her house stayed quiet. No ribbons, no cake. No gifts wrapped with care. Her chair at the family table sat empty. She was elsewhere, touring new places with Brenda. The building smelled like fresh paint. The guide smiled warmly, leading them down a bright corridor. "This room is for art," she said, opening a door filled with sunlight. Finished paintings lined the walls. A man in a denim smock cleaned brushes by the sink. Ruth stepped inside. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Her eyes lingered on the canvas by the window. Her fingers twitched slightly, like they remembered. Ruth's fingers trembled slightly as she touched the brochure about the art shows. Her eyes lingered on the pictures of paintings and smiling faces. The guide's words floated around her. Gallery events twice a year, classes at the college. Her lips curled into a small, shy smile, the first since the phone call. Later, Ruth signed the papers, her hand steady this time, placing the deposit for a cozy one-bedroom apartment. She looked around the community room, her gaze resting on the dining area where others gathered. Outside, she noticed the security guards walking quietly, and a van waited by the curb, ready for medical appointments. For the first time in a long while, something inside her shifted. In the car, Brenda glanced over. "Are you sure?" Her voice held concern. Ruth stared out the window at the passing trees, breathing in the cool air. "Yes," she said softly. "I need this." That night, her phone buzzed and buzzed, calls and messages flashing with desperate names. She ignored them, packing quietly in Brenda's spare room. The movers came with locked doors, and she watched Michael's car crawl slowly past the house, headlights dim in the dark. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the empty walls. Her fingers hovered over the phone to change numbers and emails. Each click felt like a step farther away. She closed her eyes and let out a slow breath, knowing it had to be done. Moving day arrived. Brenda unpacked boxes with care, hanging Ruth's paintings on the walls. Ruth arranged brushes and paints on a small table by the bright window. Sunlight spilled across the canvas she had started, a garden bursting with color. That evening they sat on the balcony, tea warming their hands. Below, neighbors tended flowers and chatted. Ruth's eyes followed a butterfly as it danced over the blossoms. She smiled, feeling light. Months passed. Ruth's brush moved smoothly, creating vibrant landscapes full of life. She laughed with Milan in the community hall, their awkward apologies fading with each shared step in dance. She listened to his stories, smiled at his jokes, and felt warmth spread inside. Margaret handed her a book with a gentle nod during the club meeting. Richard brought tomatoes wrapped in newspaper, his hands earthy from the garden. Emily's calm voice guided her through yoga stretches, her movements slow but steady. One afternoon, Michael appeared in the community center, lilies in hand, his smile bright but forced. Ruth stood tall, voice steady as she met his eyes. Words came quietly but firmly, truths laid bare between them. He shifted, unable to meet her gaze, fingers twisting the flower stems. He spoke of love, but the weight in Ruth's chest told her otherwise. She folded her arms, shaking her head softly, turning away as he left the lilies behind. Days later, Ruth's phone stayed silent. She folded a painting carefully, placed it in a box, and closed the lid. No calls, no messages. She poured tea for herself, the steam curling between her fingers. Brenda knocked and smiled through the open door, pastries in hand. Milan's laughter drifted in from the kitchen. Outside, Richard's tomatoes waited on the counter, and Margaret's book lay open on the table. Emily's yoga mat rolled out near the window where the sun spilled golden light. Ruth lifted her brush once more, dipping it into vibrant paint. Her strokes were steady, filled with new strength. The garden on her canvas bloomed, colors deep and bright, just like the life she was painting now. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate every single one of you. I hope you enjoyed the story as much as I loved creating it. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment to let me know your thoughts, and share it with your friends so they can join the fun too. And of course, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. More exciting content is coming your way. Stay tuned, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.